I've got a High Court writ of possession. I'm taking possession of this land as of now. That's the northwest corner. So they will escort you to that point. From that point you can walk wherever you want, except back on you again.
Parliament Square in the early hours of a pitch-black summer morning. 20 High Court enforcement officers from Shergroup, acting upon a High Court writ of possession, leap into action, spreading across the large patch of grass from different directions. A security team takes position on the perimeter of the site, under the statues of famous citizens, including Nelson Mandela and Winston Churchill. This is Democracy Village, a peace camp which has been set up by anti-war campaigners in front of the Houses of Parliament in London. It's also an eyesore, one which London Mayor Boris Johnson wants removing. Shergroup, working with the Metropolitan Police and the Greater London Authority, have put a plan of action in place to ensure the protesters are removed safely from the site so it can be restored to its former glory.
Health and safety is of utmost importance to Shergroup. We've got a specialised team in that will deal with all the critical issues, just in case the people try to be silly and they chain themselves or cast themselves in concrete. We've got these specialist teams who will remove them, and then our security teams and enforcement officers can take care of the site after that.
Once the eviction begins, many demonstrators pick up their belongings and leave. Some confess they're using it as a free campsite in central London and aren't bothered about the protest. Others are determined to stay put and make their views heard.
You're acquiescing to a corrupt authority. You're giving up your dignity for security.
In demonstrations like this, protesters take extreme risks with their own safety, like this person who climbed onto a lorry load of fencing. Or this woman who locked herself onto some scaffolding with a solid bike lock. Highly trained specialists investigate how to release her safely. You've chained your neck to this post here. Why have you done that? That is quite an extreme form of protest.
Well, we promised that we would not be going quietly or we would resist. We also promised that we would be peaceful and non-violent. This is a technique of non-violent direct action, which is expressing determination to stay somewhere that I feel I have absolute legitimacy. This is supposedly a democracy, and I should be able to protest or to be assembling outside the Houses of Parliament. The soldiers that are in Afghanistan are supposedly fighting for democracy and freedom. So I don't know what they would think. I would like to know what those soldiers would think of the fact that people protesting about what's happening in Afghanistan are having to go to the extent of chaining themselves here and then being dragged off against their will.
We'll go across with a cutting kit, we'll light the area up for safety, we'll release the D-lock around the neck, we'll then secure the ladders we'll cut the canopies away, and we'll go up and guy line the ladders, throw the ropes over.
Sticking to stringent health and safety regulations, the specialist team set about releasing her safely from her self-imposed shackle.
No, that's how they see us, because they're big blokes, aren't they, like the lads? You know, the lads, working for the lads, the checkerboard boys. Well done, girl, we love
On top of the same scaffolding, 2 anti-war campaigners decide to sit it out until the very end, before accepting their time to move on was looming.
I'm somewhat sad because obviously we want this message to be right out full front into the government, but obviously we realise that at some point, you know, there would be pressure on us to leave. So we were obviously expecting it, and so here we are.
And will you go quietly?
Always go quietly, but obviously we will make a stand up here as long as possible, as you'd expect.
Soon, they too were brought down to safety and escorted from the site. Removing protesters who are often struggling to stay put takes a great deal of care, and Shergroup's enforcement officers are allowed to use reasonable force to pick them up and carry them away. Officers and security staff are trained in conflict management and restraint, and Shergroup complies with all legislation in such matters. Police are also on hand to quell further disruption off-site, as in the case of these demonstrators disrupting the traffic around Parliament Square. By dawn, all the demonstrators had been removed, with just one long-time protester allowed to stay. Once an eviction is over, the site still needs to be secured to prevent unwanted visitors from returning. A few tents and personal possessions were cleared away for collection later, while rubbish and hypodermic needles were binned. Damage to the area will need repairing. Shergroup's own security team remain on site to patrol the area after fencing has been erected around the perimeter. The enforcement of the High Court writ was carried out safely, swiftly and professionally, and the site returned to the Greater London Authority. The enforcement of a writ of possession takes a great deal of planning and expertise. Because Shergroup offers enforcement, legal and security services combined, they are the natural choice when it comes to restoring high-risk sites to their rightful owners, sites like Parliament Square, which visitors to the capital are now free to enjoy once more.